Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amy Wright, and I am the head of creative strategy at Automated Creative, the creative effectiveness platform that for the last 5 years has been using a combination of automation, AI, and machine learning as practitioners in this space for clients to turn media impressions into creative intelligence and importantly start understanding why ads work. So as a practitioner, thrilled to have Ceci Dones, who is this super interesting blend of practitioner and academic. Cecilia is currently studying for her doctorate at Columbia University. She is looking at immersive digital environments, the impact on interpersonal relationships, and also consumer psychology. She was named in the Global Data Power List for 2022. So Cecilia, apart from the amazing bio, what is it that we need to know about you to better understand your viewpoint in the space of AI and connectivity?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for paying attention, and I know it's very late in the day. I'm very curious. I'm a researcher by trade. I love understanding people. How many people are brand people? You own brands? You work on brands? Okay, cool. Got it. So you're going to get out of this talk a few tips and tricks regarding how to communicate authenticity from a brand. And then how many agency people do we have? I heart agency people. I was in many agencies in my previous lives. You are going to be the gurus to help brands to better understand how to show up authentically in media spaces. And then any suppliers in the room? Okay, yes, thank you. I am going to give you a hint of things you should be telling your chief product officer so you can build it so I can buy it. And with that, my name is Ceci Dones, and I am a practitioner, which means I do work for an organization. I'm their head of data, so I build data and analytics capabilities for organizations trying to do the data digital transformation. I'm also an academic, so my core expertise is actually in marketing. I am obsessed with trying to understand consumer behavior. What has driven my entire career has been answering the question, why do people do that? And then using qualitative analytics, quantitative analytics to help tell that story about people. In the last 10 years of my career, I would say I've been very focused on categories related to desire. So not needs, not utility, not wants, but desire. So I've worked in beauty, I worked in sexual wellness, and now I'm currently working in alcohol bev. So you can imagine there are a few more categories I need to hit. If anyone has any help in that area, thank you, thank you. I'm always good with a contact. And so in terms of my research areas, I'm really obsessed with trying to understand immersive virtual environments, consumer psychology, and more importantly, we're all in practice, brand experience. So how do you build that connection between consumers and your brands in virtual environments?
Amazing. So I think we'll start off with something really, really practical. Again, a lot of practitioners, a lot of agencies in the room. So where do we need to start thinking practically about authenticity in the digital space? How do we start a kind of framework with which to build across that?
Yeah, excellent question. So there has been some work in 2015 regarding the tension that consumers feel in digital spaces. More technically, we call it the personalization privacy paradox. So I must share information for me as a consumer to receive value from a brand in a digital experience. And in all interpersonal relationships, there's this constant, how much do I share? How much value do I get back? And so the work around that really highlights that in the consumer's mind, they're always doing that calculus to understand, should I give this piece of information? What is the value exchange that I get back from the brand? And so at the end of the day, what are we trying to do as marketers? Build trust. There is a significant amount of work regarding what are the drivers to trust, what are the antecedents to trust, and I have a fun mnemonic to help kind of put that into a framework. So I call it, it's actually not mine, but it's the 4 C's. So we're always trying to communicate care as a brand. So what do I mean by care? Meaning I always give benefit to the consumer. We always talk about competence. Another C, meaning if I say I can do this as a brand, I can deliver that value to you as to a consumer. Consistency, so how often do we have our iPhones and we just want it to work? So consistently performing to the expectation of the consumer. Commitment. So if there is agreement of a value exchange, if I say if you sign up for this newsletter, you will only get it once a week and you'll get some promo codes or whatever couponing, I deliver upon that. And then communication, which is in any kind of value exchange, any kind of relationship, we always have to be clear about our intentions, clear about expectations, and also clear about when things go awry and how to work through those things. So I would say that.
Amazing. So I think consistency is something that really speaks to us as a platform. Obviously, one of the massive benefits of automation is it allows you to do the same thing lots and lots of times. But I think it changes up the way that we start thinking about consistency as brands as well. So consistency should not mean matching luggage for every single platform. It should mean having a greater depth of personality and a more nuanced way that you show up. And that applies for brands in the same way that it does for ourselves. The way I show up on a platform like Discord, if I'm gaming, is very, very different to how I show up on LinkedIn. They're both me, but they're kind of those multiplicities of personality that I think it's really exciting that we get to play with a little bit more when we can start scaling things out. I would also like to add another C into that list, and that C would be collaboration. So part of our workflow is about collapsing different disciplines in on themselves. So bringing together some of that fragmentation that has started happening across different organizations. So we see it a lot between media and creative. It might be between global or local teams. So bringing together some more of those disciplines. So bringing the insight team closer to the executional team. So thinking about collaboration, how have you seen that operate, particularly given that you're in these two really different spaces as both academic and practitioner?
Collaboration is tough. First of all, I'm always open to collaboration, either thought leadership or research, both in academic or practitioner. I'm very open to it. I think, I'm going off script. I think in terms of collaboration, we build much better products, much better experiences, deliver much more value when you have more people working towards the same vision and goal. So I think collaboration is critically important for achieving objectives and achieving goals. I think it's tough because collaboration also means communication, and that means you're dealing with people and you don't know their context at any given moment. So understanding, did they just come out of a really tough meeting? Is there something going on at home? Did they have a good night's rest? All those things can make collaboration a little bit tough. I would say, in terms of advice, practice grace. Always assume everyone has positive intention.
Oh, that's lovely. It is increasingly interesting to me that almost the more we delve into tech and AI in this space, the more messy and human the human element becomes, and it's really important, I think, to reflect some of that in the work that we're doing. I think as a bit of a step change, we've talked a little bit about some of that practicalities, that kind of key framework for the C's there. We're going to play a really short clip just to cue up sort of a broader macro discussion as well. You might recognize this from Westworld a few years ago.
You want to ask, so ask.
Are you real?
Well, if you can't tell, does it matter?
So, massive poignant pause. Artificial versus real. What does that even mean anymore?
I think it's, first of all, does everyone know this context? It was very popular in the US. I am not certain in other markets. Everyone has seen the show, understand. Oh, okay, excellent.
It's great.
So, good for everyone who has seen it. Highly recommend the first season. All other seasons, we can debate later. The question at hand was, in terms of personalization, the woman was playing an artificial intelligence robot interacting with a consumer. And that consumer was responding to the uncanny valley, meaning this entity seems real, but maybe a little bit too real. And this person was trying to understand, how much do I share? How much do I interact? Does that actually matter? And I think it's a very interesting question because with the proliferation of more generative AI type of technologies, especially when we think about chatbots, things are becoming more and more real. And so the question of, well, if I'm interacting with an AI, do I treat them differently than if I'm interacting with a person who's sitting in front of me, or someone I know very well, or someone that is maybe part of my family or part of my friend group? How do you treat them differently, if at all? And does that matter? And from a brand's experience, brands are trying to develop relationships with consumers all the time. And so understanding where the consumer is, how much they're willing to divulge and share, how much value you're willing to exchange for that sharing needs to be very clear, one. And two, I would argue that how that is communicated in a virtual environment is also very critical. So not being overly precise. So there has been some academic work that has demonstrated when you are too precise about numbers, people will start to distrust the AI. But if you use rounded numbers, so less decimal points, consumers are more willing to trust the AI. So not being too much and not being too little. So finding the right balance between too much precision and less precision. And I would also say that I'm actually very curious. I had to write this one down. How many of us have heard of replica? Okay, excellent. So I think it's 2015, 2016, chatbot, girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, companion. How many of us have heard of Soulmate? Soulmate AI? Okay. Look it up, similar idea, but these services are utilizing generative AI technologies to create an interactive chatbot. So an entity to be a companion, an entity that you can text at any time, an entity that responds to you in supposedly a meaningful way. And so the question there is, in virtual environments, can people actually have relationships with non-human entities? Does anyone want to disagree with that? People can't. You can't have the same meaningful relationship. Okay. How many of us, I'm curious now, how many of us ever, when we were growing up, had a stuffed animal that was like with us all the time, or I don't know.
Definitely did.
Okay, excellent. Or blankie, maybe I'm not using the right words. Someone can teach me later. Okay, excellent. So anthropomorphization, this happens. This has happened for a very long time. Children do this naturally. So the extension of that in real life teddy bear or in real life blankie into a virtual environment is quite natural. And what the early evidence of researchers in this space is starting to demonstrate is that people are building real, authentic relationships with these chatbots. And it's fulfilling an emotional need for these people. So as brands, okay, maybe you don't need to develop a chatbot, maybe you don't need to do that, but what is something to think about? I would argue that being clear about your brand values and how you choose to communicate that authentically and with consent with the consumer, I think is critical for you to be able to navigate this space.
Absolutely. And I think a softer version, maybe we're not having full-fledged relationships, but I, for one, when I'm using things like ChatGPT, how many people are using please and thank you when they speak to it? And partly that's because I'm pretty sure my monkey brain can't handle the difference, and I don't know on a really deep level that it is unreal or fake. So definitely find myself doing that. Has the added benefit of when Skynet takes over, it will remember that I was kind to it, and I think that's really important as well. So we've touched a little bit there on some of the implications of developing relationships with the unreal. I'm going to do that because is it truly unreal? Maybe not. What are some of the ethics that sit with that as well? Are there things that we need to be thinking about from, particularly as brands, with a reputational point of view and ethics and how we treat spaces with vulnerable communities, as an example?
So there are no hard and fast rules. However, I think the golden rule is always very important in this case, meaning always be authentic about the value you're providing to your consumer while also listening to your consumers. I think sometimes those of us who've been in practice for very long and been working on a specific portfolio of brands, we may become very passionate about those brands, very passionate about those products, and our consumers could be trying to speak to us. And they're trying to give us signals that, hey, maybe I don't want to do this anymore, or hey, maybe this is another value you can bring. So, for example, I used to work on a brand It was a deodorant type brand. And for the longest time, it was specifically targeted against a demographic. And we did not understand why, when we were doing basket analyses, why it was being sold next to dog food. And it took us a few focus groups to finally realize that consumers were utilizing this deodorant brand to spray on their pets so that their pets wouldn't smell. Yeah, I know. Oh, goodness. Legal got involved, R&D got involved. They're like, can you actually do that to pets? Let's not. But that consumer insight that, gosh, pet owners wanted to have some kind of deodorant for their pet, and this was a use case. There could have been an opportunity in a different direction or a different product development. But again, listening to your consumers, especially when they're giving you signals, is critical if you want to navigate this gray space of the virtual environments.
Absolutely, and that's completely at the heart of what we try to do with creative data, and it's about creating that signal loop to really better understand things and ultimately take some of the guesswork out of marketing and start using data and insight to really ground everything as our world explodes and we get ever more emerging technologies as well. Were there any kind of final piece of advice that you wanted to give our audience and what might be coming for them in the next kind of 2, 5, 10 years that they should be thinking about?
My first PSA is a public service announcement will be technology is great. It's very exciting. It's lovely gray space, and you can be as creative as you want to be, so do not fear. However, as marketers, as individuals who are in business trying to deliver value to brands and consumers, I would argue that you want to always think about people first. So what is the consumer thinking? What do they want? What do they need? What does your organization need? Is this appropriate for your organization at this time to engage? Not all industries have to jump into the metaverse immediately. I would think about purpose. So going back to the brand equity, the brand DNA, why are you here? What are you doing as a business for the marketplace for consumers? I would also have a plan. So if you are a first mover, you're going into virtual environments first, okay, fine. Fail quickly, learn fast, all those things. If you are a fast follower, that's an excellent position to be in. Be ready. If you are a laggard, there are some industries that are laggards in technology. That's okay too, but make a choice and be mindful of that choice. And then priorities. I would argue that we cannot boil the ocean. There are too many things happening that are exciting and are shiny objects and wonderful things that can distract you. Be clear about what you want to deliver, and your consumers will follow you.
Amazing, thank you so much. And if we could just cue the final slide. If you're curious to know more about AI and the impact it's going to have on the world, you can learn none of that at our really fun, unofficial after party tonight, which is the Automate Creative AI Prompt Battle. It is a pub quiz style environment where we are going to be having different rounds based on different generative pieces of technology. There is a QR code, I think, if we can get the last image up somewhere. Otherwise, come and find me for drinks vouchers and things like that. So if you need somewhere to go after the drinks here run out, please come and join us, and we can chat more about AI connection and connectivity as well. So thank you very much. Ceci Duns.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.